All right. Hey, Ned.
Hey, Ned, how are you doing?
Super cool to have you. I've been watching you on other conferences, so I have a little bit of a background, but I want our viewers, everybody here, to first know about you. Then we're going to discuss some about the market and the company. So give us a little bit of a context about you. What have you been doing in the last years?
Excellent. Thank you. Well, look, thank you for getting me on this. I know I was on another kind of show and you messaged me right afterwards. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. So, I'm a 53-year-old startup guy. Actually, when I started Bambu at 49, I thought, wow, that's really late for a startup. But then I Googled what's the average age of a successful startup founder, and it turns out it's 44. So maybe I'm not too late, right? Maybe it's okay. Originally from the UK, lived in Asia for 30 years, and my relevance to fintech is that I joined a company called E-Trade. E-Trade was one of the first online brokers. Joined them in the 90s. And in the 90s, the idea of trading online seemed wild and wacky. And I joined a company that was doing that. I was lucky enough to go through the dot-com. Well, I was lucky to go into the dot-com boom, ride it down with a company up in the GFC, come down. So been through a few ups and downs. And then living in Singapore for a long time, had the opportunity to start Bambu. We design and build savings apps. And yeah, it's been a great adventure. So now I run Bambu, a B2B software firm in Singapore.
And how big is the company? I understood that you have different locations that you're active on.
Yeah, we have 70 people now, mostly in Singapore, but we have offices and people in London, San Fran, Johannesburg, and we've been very lucky. So we've got clients in the US, we've got clients in Europe, clients in Asia. And, we design and build what's known as robo-advisors or, automated investment tools. And we do everything from like designing the application to the portfolio, financial planning, algorithms, to integrating to make it transactional. We've been lucky to work with some of the world's largest firms, HSBC, Standard Chartered, Franklin Templeton, who's an investor. And I always summarize it. My wife jokes with me. She said, "How was your day at work today at Bambu?" And I say, "This is the most fun I've ever had in my career." And she says, "Well, I'm glad because it's the least you've ever been paid." And as a startup guy, that's the reality, right? Love it to pieces, but still got a way to go. But it's been really good fun.
And how does your personal network, I mean, you were a network before launching the company. How does it help your relationship with other banks around the world? How does it help you as a CEO?
Look, I'm a B2B guy, right? So if I'd been B2C, I don't think it would have helped because that's really about, cost per acquisition, like Robinhood, viral marketing. But, we're selling to some of the world's largest banks. And here's the reality. I'm 53. People who run banks are generally older in their 50s. I've been selling in Asia for 30 years. So I've sold to a lot of these people. If I don't know somebody, I know somebody who knows somebody. So certainly don't know everybody. But I think as a B2B player in finance, particularly in Asia, and also when I ran E-Trade, I reported into Palo Alto and their head office in the Valley. So I used to go to the Valley all the time. So I think I had a pretty good connection. And yeah, I used to have a Rolodex of business cards, thousands of cards, and I would rifle through. And I still got them. I can't bear to throw them away. But of course, now it's all digital. But yeah, I think networks probably helped us for sure.
And what are these clients are looking for when they come to Bambu? Where is the innovation? What can you provide them to jump them like few steps up, more than few steps?
Yeah, look, it's a great question. So everybody saves and invests, right? You do, I do, but we do it in different ways, right? You have your own financial goals, I have mine, whatever. But we've done it through financial institutions, right? You have an advisor, you buy a fund. And I say this with all great respect to all of our clients. It's never been the most fun, right? You don't think, oh, great, I'm going to see my financial advisor. Or, oh, great, I'm going to have a manual experience filling in forms to buy a fund. So I actually think it's partly innovation, but it's partly about just digitizing wealth. making it obvious and seamless. So it's a two-step process. It's not like we have to be Elon Musk and build a better autonomous driving car. We have to build beat a process that was offline, kind of bureaucratic, expensive, and slow. So we design and build great savings journeys. So, hey, it would be like, hey, Nir, we try to understand a bit about you. How seamlessly can we understand your financial goals, get you the right product, get your money in? So a lot of the work is talking to the banks, probably in this way. You know, banks want to sell you a fund, but you probably don't wake up in the morning and think, oh, I want to buy a balanced equity portfolio today.
Exactly.
Like, you want a better financial life, and the bank's products help you. So partly it's talking to the clients and go, you need to give them a better digital wealth experience. They don't actually want to buy your product. They have to buy your product. So we talk about that. We've been very lucky. My father has been in AI for almost 50 years. So when we started the company, we used his knowledge to build great financial planning goals. Our own team took it on. So we talked to them about doing data-driven financial planning. And yeah, like I think it's a bit of it. And very luckily, wealth is probably one of the least digitized. It's catching up very quickly now. So yeah, let's put it this way. We're not taking on Elon every day. We're taking on an industry that has a long way to go.
Wow. Amazing. And so how is the business going now on COVID? Like you're doing from home and building this relationship with these banks?
You know, look, nobody wants COVID. I get that, right? And I hope that as history proves that as humans, we're pretty resilient, right? The world's been through some tough times. The world comes back, and it will, right? That's how life works, right? But COVID's done two things, I would say, just speaking personally, is, work from home will become more prevalent. I do not think it is the only answer. Companies that have said everybody work from home forever, me personally, I think we need to be together to innovate, right? If I said to you, hey, Nir, let's innovate 5 p.m. next Wednesday on a Zoom call, this is not how it works, right? Like you do it. So I think an office is important. And the other thing is, we build saving and investment journeys. Financial advice, meeting people. Banks don't have a choice now. Like, it doesn't have to be 100% digitization of their wealth journey, but if they stay at 0%, that's not a strategy. And we have our own podcast at Bambu called Wealth Tech Unwrapped, and we talked to a lady called April Rudin, who's one of the great wealth tech marketing people, and she wrote a paper called ROI of wealth tech. And you're thinking return on investment. She said return on inertia. The negative impact of doing nothing. How much will it cost you if you do nothing? Don't think about how much you spend to do something. If you do nothing, your customers will leave you in droves. So we're seeing a huge amount of incoming requests. Obviously, is it easy to sign deals right now in this virtual world? Is it easy for banks to spend money? No. But overall, it's been, I hate to say a net positive. It feels bad to say positive and COVID in the same sentence. That's not the right way to say it. But has it increased demand for what we do? It's a natural yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I wanted to talk to you about the ecosystem in Singapore. What are you seeing in terms of the innovation coming from there a little bit? Also Hong Kong, if you can share with us. The banks, the neobanks, the newest fintechs. What do you feel about the innovation? Because we've been talking about fintech nations in this summit, and everybody knows that that Singapore and Hong Kong and all these markets have the best super apps and robo advisors and stuff. So what do you see over there that we don't see in other parts of the world?
Yeah, it's a great question. Again, I'm biased, right? Like I've been in Asia 30 years. So it's kind of the lens I see things through. And, I worked for a Silicon Valley company in the 90s. So I kind of get best of both. And you talk about super apps. Clearly China with Tencent and Ali have stepped above the rest of the world in that concept of super apps. I love this phrase. I was talking to someone the other day in China and we were on a Zoom call, right? And I was like, oh, where do you live in China? He said, oh, I live in Alipay. And what he meant was, he said, and I sometimes move to WeChat. His whole life is in WeChat. His food, his finance, his insurance, his education, like every single, of course, he goes out and exercises, not on his app, but although you can exercise through the app anyway. I would say in Singapore and Hong Kong, clearly we have smaller populations, so we have to outsize on innovation. And particularly Singapore, you know, the government, the MAS here have been clear. I don't know, have you been to the Singapore FinTech Festival?
No, not yet, but actually now we're collaborating with them. I mean, them and the Invest Hong Kong FinTech Week on the summit.
Exactly. So last year, 60,000 people came.
Wow.
It's, you know, if you told somebody 60,000 people were going to come to like a finance or a tech conference, it doesn't make sense. But it was, it's like, and then you turn up and companies like Razer. So Razer, which is a gaming hardware company out of Singapore, amazing job with gaming hardware. But then they got into payments and now they're getting into banking and, you know, Grab and Gojek, two super apps that were ride hailing companies, but are now fully fledged lenders, wealth. Grab just launched a wealth product. And this is what's happening, I think, in Asia. This concept that one application can drive so much, and the regulators support it, the ecosystem support it. And, you know, even for us as Bambu, you know, we've been lucky. When we started, we thought, okay, who are we going to pitch wealth to? The banks, a few insurers. Now I can pitch Razer and Grab and Gojek and digital bank.
Unbelievable.
Every financial institution wants to copy. Then we've got new robo-advisors like Stashaway, and the ecosystem has sped up. And, you know, look, you work in conferences, you work in content. Content builds on content, right? Belief builds on belief. And I think we really see it here. And clearly, look, it's a stable economy. It's a well-run economy. It's got a lot of, you know, even I think in the government speech last year, they talked to fintech as one of the new pillars of the economy. So, but I do notice, as you said, you're from Israel. I'm actually a very keen cycling fan. And I don't know if you saw, but in the Tour de France, the new sponsor of one of the cycling teams is Israel Start Nation.
I saw. See, it came to you and it does the job, the work done. Super interesting. I mean, what you just said, super interesting. I wanted to ask you, how do you keep up to date with all these, you know, fintechs over there? Because you mentioned so many players and so much going on, and this partnership and that new feature and this new card. Even for me, sometimes the speed is crazy. And I'm just, you know, let's say the US market and the European market, these are like the neobanks and the fintechs that I follow. So how do you keep up to date with all this?
Yeah, like I think it's essential. Like, so here's what we've learned, or here's what I'm learning in B2B. When you sell B2B tech, think about it. So let's say you run a large bank, right? And I come and tell you, and you want to buy some wealth tech, a robo-advisor, right? And you're like, oh, I'll talk to Ned. Ned turns up and goes, I have really good tech. And you're like, okay, great, thank you. I do a demo. The next company comes to the door and they say, I have really good tech. Nobody turns up and says, hi, Ned, I have crap tech. Do you want to buy it, right? It's not how life works, right? So how do you make that decision? And I read something really interesting. I don't watch a lot of kind of there was a Stanford workshop on startups. And I watched a guy, really good guy, and he talked about in B2B, create an audience, don't create a customer. And I really love that idea. And what I realized was, you know, wealth tech's new, right? And we've been going 4 years. It's not long, but relatively in wealth tech, it's quite long. Yeah. So people are going to ask us what we think. They are going to look at us as a certain amount of knowledge. So, you know, I try to go to every conference. I try to talk to people. I try to be up to date. I really try. I don't have all the answers, but I've really got to have some opinions, some thoughts, some guidance. And so that honestly, how do I do it? You know, I consume a lot. I go to every conference. I listen to podcasts. I try super hard. I always have a coffee. When somebody says, hey, do you want to chat fintech? 100%. Doesn't matter if it's not going to get me a deal. I don't care. And
yeah,
I really believe that's so crucial that we create an audience around Bambu. And I have this ultimate dream that one day when somebody says wealth, oh yeah, I work in wealth tech. Oh, you mean Bambu? I.e., we become synonymous. Maybe that's a big dream, but every startup should want to be that, right? We should be, I want to be the Uber or the Uber of taxi, or the Salesforce's CRM, or the, I was going to say the McDonald's of fast food. I don't know if that's the correct analogy, but you know what I mean, right?
How did you came with the name?
I love this story. Thank you. So if anybody out there wants to name a company, don't ask me. I'm not very good at it. The reason I tell you this is that Bambu was the third name of the company. And we almost didn't get launched because I couldn't choose a name. So the first name was Cache, C-A-C-H-E. You know, like a cache on the internet?
Yeah.
So I thought, pretty funny, cache, play. But quite often when somebody saw the word, they said, kaki? Sorry, what is the word? And it's not an easy word, right? So I still have a deck, and I keep it, that is cash. Like, it is our first company, right? So after about a month of everybody telling me it wasn't very good, I threw it away. Then we were called mangosteen. So the name mangosteen is an Asian fruit, very delicious, but on the inside, but on the outside, very confusing. It's hard to peel. So it's like finance. Finance is confusing on the outside, but once you get in and you use it, it's very beneficial. Anyway, after a month, everyone told me that didn't work. So I was scrambling to find a name because I had a start of a business, but we had no name. And the best robo-advisor in America was called Acorns. From little acorns grow big trees. The best robo-advisor in Europe was called Nutmeg. It was a plant. I was like, oh, I should be the plant-based robo-advisor of Asia. And who doesn't like bamboo? Grows fast, it's strong. And then I changed the O-O to U, just to try and be fintech and cool, to be honest. And I showed 5 people bamboo. They were like,
it works, yeah.
Let's go. So it took me almost 3 months to come up with the name.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I wanted to mention something about Singapore before that. We're talking about fintech nations, and actually the idea for the name, the fintech nations, summit and community and everything that we are building came to me because the finance minister in the Netherlands, he wrote a memo a month ago saying that the Netherlands needs to be a fintech nation. As you said, they need to focus the economy on fintech because that can grow, that can benefit them. And they need to connect these fintech bridges to 2 nations that he decided to mention in the memo. One is Singapore and one is Israel. And this is where the idea came for, and this is how they perceive, their emerging markets and the fintech world. So super interesting, very, very interesting. In Israel, we don't have the innovation inside of our country. We are exporting the innovation. So a lot of our fintechs are going outside of Israel. And yes, you mentioned Startup Nation, but the average citizen in Israel doesn't feel the innovation enough in the banking, in the payment sector. We're just starting with open banking, making sure what do we want to open banking to include. By the way, how is open banking in Singapore like this?
Yeah, it's definitely, progressing very rapidly, but it's a great point. Like, what startup nation, fintech nation, the government believes in it. People start to believe in, sometimes people say, what is fintech? And I say, do you remember the first time you got in an Uber and you got out and you didn't pay? You paid, but you didn't pay. That was fintech. That was fintech right there. Wasn't it magical? Like, you're like, I got out the taxi and I didn't pay. Like, I paid, but how crazy cool was that? So I try to make it real. Look, open banking in Singapore is progressing tremendously. In 2016, at the very first fintech conference here, organized by the MAS, the chairman or the number one gentleman at the MAS called Ravi Menon stood up on stage, huge stage. You've done conferences, right? You know how big a stage can be with a great big sign. And he wrote behind it, it says, the MAS has no objection to the cloud whatsoever. And the important word was whatsoever. What it meant was cloud, and that's a starting point, right? You can't have open banking if you're all on premise, right? And I think what we've seen here is a continuous, Singapore then did My Info. My Info is a centralized database where we can all open accounts. And open banking has happened where you're moving along that. There's still some work to do there. But I think in Singapore, we've had that incredible enabler that the government, again, look, we're a small society. We are a society which, has the capital, obviously Singapore's done amazingly well. So yeah, look, I think it's a real test bed. It doesn't have a lot of people, 6 million people, but it's a unique test bed. And cloud, open banking, APIs, centralized KYC, it's starting to really create everything you need. The only thing we don't have, obviously, is a huge audience here, but within, Indonesia, India, China, we are able to do that. And, for us, we're based in Singapore, but most of our clients are global.
Now, at least in Israel here, everybody's excited about the Emirates, Dubai, all these places in the region because of the peace process that is just going on right now. And there's a lot of delegations of these traditional banks who are flying from there, here, and from here, there. Like the banks and the fintechs are the first ones who are opening the gate for the relationship. So it's the fintechs we're going.
And we have a client in Dubai already that we've been building for. So we've been working there and we've ended up meeting other players there. And you're right. You can see across that region that, finance has been, kind of legacy and manual. It's been very expensive. And I think you're right. You're seeing an enormous appetite there. It's like everywhere, right? Like you say, Israel's still starting, but it's starting everywhere, right? Everywhere is.
Yeah. Also Australia, we had lots of neobanks and banks here on the summit from Australia. And I got, amazing speakers here from Australia, amazing innovation, amazing willingness to bring something new to the market over there. And I think that there are like 5 neobanks over there with new services. Each one has a different niche.
And each of, you're right. I think there's Jolt and there's 86,400 and, there's all these guys, right? But, the other bit that makes that startup nation. So there was a survey in Singapore, and I hope I don't get this number wrong, or maybe it was in the US, forgive me, but it was a number saying that 26% of university leavers would put working for a startup as their number one choice. 10 years ago, that wasn't a thing. It was a consulting firm or an accountant or a bank. And I'm sure it's different in every country. Singapore was classically, let's get a safe job at a big bank or a big consultant, let's do that. But even now we get flooded with inquiries. And I think that's what drives the innovation. It's not the old guys like me. I'm 53. What am I going to innovate? Really? I can help by creating the business. But I think, in Australia and Israel and, America, and again, look, the world is changing right now. But, people want to work for startups and they understand it's risky, but they understand, wow, I get some purpose. I could do something amazing. Of course, I could be the next Facebook, probably not, but you never know. And I think it's quite often the narrative that's missing is that the talent available, not the experienced talent. It's not the people coming out of the big consultants or the banks. It's that people are coming out of university and going, I want to work in a startup right now. And because they don't know how to do it wrong, they just do it and stuff happens. And I think you're seeing that in so many nations.
Yeah, that's true. It's everywhere, like you said. Yes, we are reaching to the end of the interview, even though I could talk to you for hours, and I think it's one of the most interesting talks this summit with you. I think you're doing a great job because first people connect you as a person, as a storyteller, they love to understand your world and about, again, the ecosystem and the bigger perspective of what are we doing, not just the specific features, because if they want to learn about the specific features, I guess they can go to your website and see exactly.
Look, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. And I think, was what I've learned. I was very lucky when I met my co-founder. He's very focused on product and it's amazing. And he builds great stuff. But I love people and I like talking. And I think, and like maybe this isn't exactly the right thing to say, but there's a lot of boring day-to-day stuff about fintech, right? Like, API integrations and writing code, and it can be exciting, but it's day to day. But I have a 20-year-old daughter. by the time her kids, or I have grandkids or great-grandkids, they'll be like, what was money? What did you actually, how did money work? It'll be like an LP or a typewriter. And, you know, we are in the middle of change. So I feel as a 53-year-old to be running a startup and having fun, look, I appreciate it to share. But yeah, I feel super lucky to be doing this for sure.
Amazing. How do people find out more about you, the company? How do they contact you?
Sure, thank you so much. So feel free to email me anytime, ned@bambu.co, so Ned at Bambu. Our website is bambu.co. And you can see us on LinkedIn and Twitter. Just, you know, my name's pretty straightforward, Ned Phillips. But also, we have our own podcast, Wealth Tech Unwrapped. And it's myself and my colleague, Danny. She's a real newbie to wealth tech. I know a little bit. And we try to unwrap it and talk about, you know, why would Danny use fintech, right? What is it to her? She works at Bambu, but she's 26. She's a millennial. She's like, what are you guys actually doing? She knows from wealth tech. So yeah, if you get a chance, Wealth Tech Unwrapped, give it a listen. That would be great.
I will listen today, and I'm sure lots of people here will listen too. And let's be in touch. Great to hear from you. Great to hear your story, and I can't wait to visit and meet in person, as you said.
Please do. Leah, thank you so much for the opportunity. Really appreciate and hope to catch up soon. Thank you.
Great. Good luck.